damage per shot. You're just never gonna. You cannot fire enough basilisks into that unit to ever make a difference.
Somewhere out there, there's a guard commander that's going to try and do that. But yes, I agree. There's.
But all the while, you've got Deathwing Knights stomping towards you, about to smash your face in. So,
yeah, it's a scary objective, to be honest. And the fact that you can combine the ones in the Space Marine book, which I thought wasn't a thing, but is yeah. You combine this and you have that as one. You have Oath at the moment as the other. If you're playing someone that hasn't got a book yet, that is a lot of inbuilt advantage. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Talking of synergies with the core book, I've realised now that if I'm playing Raven Wing, I can fall back and shoot with 3 units basically, because there's a strat in the core book that's for any biker or land speeder or storm. I can fall back and shoot with hit and run warfare. So I can do that. I can use the fall back and shoot Dark Angels one for any unit, and then I can do the fall back after I've fought. So it's 3 units that have fallen back and now can shoot, one of which can also charge.
So, pro tip: don't tag Dark Angels thinking they're not going to be able to fall back and shoot you in the face.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, moving on to the Dark Angels sort of unique units, I don't think there's any point covering, say, the chaplains, because they're going to be basically the same as all the other Marine ones. Should we have a chat about this?
So interrogator chaplains, the only difference really is, so interestingly, a non-Primaris interrogator chaplain has the same number of wounds and attacks as a Primaris chaplain. So that's one reason why you would take an interrogator chaplain over a Primaris chaplain, although you can't take them on bikes, but you can then give them a jump pack, which makes them a lot more flexible than a Primaris interrogator chaplain. The other added bonus, which is kind of neither here nor there, is they have a fear aura. So I think can't remember. It's not great, but that's why you would always take an interrogator chaplain over any other kind of chaplain, unless you really wanted one on bike, which you would need in a Raven Wing army. Or of Dread, while an enemy unit is within 6 inches of the model, it counts as being below half strength. So for attrition tests, that's what it is. But you're taking it for the extra wound, the extra attack, and the fact you can give it a jump pack.
Yeah, especially as the most common army you're going to fight is Marines, and they don't care that they're below half strength when they take morale anyway. So
yeah.
But hey, if a non-fearless horde comes into the meta against demons, then hey, break them out and smile as you kill an extra 2 or 3 things when they run away. But yeah, onto the sort of named characters. Azrael's back. He's still got his 4-up Invulnora for infantry and bikers, which, to be honest, I didn't think he'd keep. You get some extra CP to take him.
It is only against ranged attacks now.
Okay. But yeah, he still looks an entirely valid option.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, I prefer Belial, just because I think he's got a lot more damage output in combat.
Yeah, I think he's a beast.
So he's got a Strength 6 AP4 damage 2 weapon that always wounds on 2 unless it's against a vehicle.
Yeah.
He's going to smash some things up.
Yeah. And the fact it's damage 3 as well, that's what makes him so good. And interestingly, his Warlord trait is the one that reduces damage by 1. So again, if he's your Warlord, he's super tanky.
Yeah, again, it's how do you kill him in an effective mind or stuff? I guess mortal wounds, but
weight of attacks with a bit of AP.
But yeah,
he's also -1 to hit in combat. So again,
he's a Yeah, he's going to be tough to kill. Samael?
Yeah,
Samael?
he's an auto pick if you're running Raven Wing. He's great.
I
Kind of,
wasn't particularly impressed by him, to be honest.
he's 8 wounds, which is cool. His plasma cannon can't kill him, which is
Hooray!
great. But yeah, then he just has kind of chapter master light in so much as it can only go onto Ravenwing. I think for his points, he's pretty good.
Okay, I think he's in the fine category.
Yeah.
I think if you're building a list where he's good, you're perfectly happy to slot him in. But I don't think he's something you're like, ooh, I need to take Ravenwing to play him type thing.
No. In a mixed list, you're probably not going to take him, but in a Ravenwing list, I think he does work.
Ezekiel, we mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, I think he might be the. No, I don't think I know. He is the best Space Marine librarian in the game.
Ooh.
He...
Tigerius might have something to say.
Okay, well, does Tigerius...
I think Tigerius is technically a better psyker. I think Ezekiel just has a much discipline, which makes Ezekiel means he'll be the one that sees play.
So does Tigerius have a 4+ invulnerable save?
I don't know off the top of my head. But he's got reroll psychic tests.
Ezekiel's got +1 to psychic tests from the Interromancy discipline.
Which is, I mean, why would you not take the Interromancy?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, he has a 4+ invulnerable save. He has a 2-up normal armor save. He's Deathwing, so he can only ever be wounded on 4+. He also has the Book of Salvation, which gives units within 6 inches 1 additional attack. Doesn't stack with Shock Assault, but against things like Death Guards, that will turn off your Shock Assault. Or in a protracted combat, those units are still getting the extra attack. So again, he is. I think he's awesome. I think he's absolutely awesome.
I think what's scary about him is if you took away all of his psychic powers, he's still a pretty reasonable melee fight.
Well, he's got weapon skill, ballistic skill too.
Yeah.
Again, like I think Mephiston has that, but I don't think any other librarians have. And
No.
Mephiston, I don't even think has +1 to cast.
Yeah. Yeah, he's brilliant. He goes right up there in that sort of top psychers of the game.
Yeah.
He's right up there alongside the likes of Araman and Ulfred from Eldar.
Yeah.
Asmodee seemed fine.
Asmodee is a waste of ink, unfortunately. He is way more expensive than a normal interrogator chaplain, and you can't turn him into a master chaplain. He's terrible.
Yeah, I was looking at it and I was looking through the profile. And I'm like, what? 2d3 damage? Then I'm like, only 1 attack with it. Moving on.
With 0 AP.
Yeah,
he sucks. He that's a real shame.
Mm.
Like he adds nothing. You are never going to see him get played.
Interrogator chaplain we kind of mentioned earlier. Very good. The only question is if you're taking him or a chaplain on bike, probably, and then you go for the Primaris chap. But yeah, another really good, solid unit.
Yeah, for 5 points more than a normal chaplain, I think he's brilliant. I think for 5 points more, the extra wound, the extra attack, I think he's amazing.
Talon Master, they're still really good.
Really good. They benefited from heavy bolters going to damage 2. They've still got the same sort of. It used to be everyone within 6 ignored cover against whatever they're shooting at. Now you've got to pick a target. But he's still brilliant. He's still a lieutenant. And like I say, you give him the relic to always hit on 2s in shooting, and his damage output is excellent.
Yeah, I think even if he wasn't a lieutenant, these guys would still be seeing plays because the weight of shots from something you can't target and is very accurate The lieutenant is just pure bonus in my.
Yeah, and the change to Jink is great because he at least has the 5 up if he hasn't advanced, and in turn 1 you're advancing him, and he still hits on 2s. He doesn't take the penalty for firing heavy weapons. That's something we didn't talk about earlier. Is the doctrine benefits. The interesting thing for Dark Angels is they have 3, but they affect different units at different times in the game. So for Raven Wing, they benefit in the Devastator Doctrine, so they get 3 inches extra movement, and they can advance and shoot guns with the -1 to hit penalty you usually associate with assault weapons. Where that's really good is rapid fire guns, because normally when you have that ability to advance and shoot rapid fire weapons as if they're assault weapons, you're just getting the 1 shot. Now they can advance and shoot but have the minus to hit penalty, but they're not assault weapons. They're still rapid fire weapons, so they still get the 2 shots. So that's really awesome. And then when the tactical doctrine is active, basically Green Wing can shoot into combat but they have weapon skill 5+. It's all right. You're probably not going to be seeing that much Green Wing. So, and then the Deathwing portion of it is when the Assault Doctrine is active, and it is pretty amazing. So they basically get reroll wounds against characters and models with 8 or more wounds.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We've mentioned Mortarion a couple of times already, just because he's probably going to be everywhere for a while, and having the ability to be an assault doctrine and reroll wounds against.
Well, you can't because of his.
But, well, yeah.
But as we mentioned, there are ways to be wounding him on 2s anyway. So.
And I think that's an aura for him, so you could use your spell to turn off his aura, and then you still get reroll.
No, because it's a contagion.
That one. Yes, you're right. Sorry. You could turn off a different aura of his. But yeah, next up there's Lazarus, who seems like a waste of paper to me.
Yeah, he's all right. I mean, if you were playing against like Grey Knights, potentially gives you some protection against their psychic damage, but yeah, he is what he is. It was a bit of a shame that they wasted the energy making him when they could have made a Primaris Azrael.
Yeah, he's a sort of duelist, anti-psyker person that you could probably just build a generic Smash Captain and have a better thing.
Yeah, he can fight twice. He can fight on death, even if he's already fought.
So, yeah, he's got his upsides. I just don't think you'd ever take him over. Well, probably over another Liberian, if nothing else, but even over a generic captain.
Yeah, he's not all that.
So Interrogator Chaplain, basically just another Chaplain. Don't think we need to talk about him. Deathwing Strike Master. Anything interesting about this chap from your point of view?
He's just a Deathwing Lieutenant, but I honestly don't think you're going to have enough HQ slots in a Deathwing list to warrant taking him.
Fair enough. As the other things, Deathwing Apothecary. I think we've all seen how good the regular Marine Apothecary is. This one's going to be great as well. I don't think there's much more to say.
He does exactly what he says on the tin. He's not as killy as a Grey Knight Terminator Apothecary, but he's still really good in terms of just providing that support and being that much more survivable with a 2-up, 5-up.
Deathwing Champion again seems fine, but not especially interesting here.
Well, I've got a bit of a secret sauce with this one. I think he could potentially see some play. I'm definitely going to be getting him on the table and seeing what I can do. So, first of all, I make him a chapter champion from Codex Space Marines, which then makes him -1 to hit, gives him the extra attack, reroll wounds against characters. You then give him the Warlord trait to have that aura of reroll charges for units around him. So again, he's buffing the guys around him. I'd probably then make him my Warlord, and then I'd give him the either from I'd make him my Warlord, and then I'd use the stratagem to give him the extra Warlord trait, and I'd either give him the +1 to advance and charge, or I'd give him the +1 strength aura. And then for funsies, I'd give him a relic. I'd make his Blade of Caliban mastercrafted to be 3 damage. And then he potentially has, I think it's 9 attacks into a unit of 10. Yeah, he could potentially be quite tasty.
Fair enough. Yeah, when you say it like that, suddenly becomes it's very scary very quickly.
Yeah. So I think that's what you do with him. If you're going to take him, you buff him up to the 9s. You make him a really important support piece in terms of the bits around him, and you make him a combat blender.
So next 2 units are the probably what might end up being the 2 most commonly seen things. It's the Deathwing Terminator Squad and the Deathwing Knights. And when you can remember the fact that these guys have Inner Circle, I kind of think similar to what we said last time with the different variants of Death Guard Knights, that these are probably more of a seasoned personal taste thing, and that either or both are just great.
Yeah. I mean, the Deathwing Knights are just incredible. Like, not only did they get the extra wounds that all Space Marines got, for some reason, they're now weapon skill 2. So, yeah, and bearing in mind the Space Marines Dark Angels chapter tactic is if they didn't move, they have +1 to hit. So they're still hitting on 2s against something with a -1 to hit. Against something with a -2 to hit, if they get charged, you could put Fury of the First. They're still hitting on 2s, even against something with a -2. So that they're incredible.
Would you be tempted by Watcher in the Dark as an upgrade? I'm not sure how many points it
They're
gives
5
you.
points, and yes, I would liberally sprinkle them in, because against Chaos, so if you're running into a lot of Death Guard in the meta, it's a once per game deny, but you can re-roll it against Chaos. So you've probably got a Librarian for a couple of backup support denies, but you'll take a few of these, and on the really clutch powers, you'll have a go, and you'll be able to re-roll it. So you could shut down someone's psychic phase in turn 1, turn 2, do the damage, and then they haven't got enough left for their psychic phase to really matter. So yeah, I think they're cute. I think you probably take a couple, and they're a point filler. If you've got 5-10 points left over, you take a couple of these.
Yeah, I think they're really good for that. It's always annoying when you've got like 8 points left, and you're like, that's too many, but I'm not sure what to spend it on. But yeah. Also, I was a little annoyed. Well, I was quite happy to see when the Death Guard book came out that there seemed to be less hate stratagems and things like that, where you get a bonus against X. And it's a little disappointing reading the Dark Angels book and seeing there's a bunch of bonuses against Chaos again. I'm like, come on! Thought we were getting rid of these.
No.
No, still have to live with bloody Vengeance for Cadia, Imperial Guard stuff as well. But we'll have to see how long that lasts.
This is what happens when they're the bad guys.
Yeah. Chaos lose, Death of the False Emperor, Imperium keep their anti-Chaos stuff.
You say lose Death to the False Emperor, but they've all got extra attacks, even when they haven't charged. I think they've done all right. But yes,
yeah. Okay, Death Guard are fine. They're doing great as far as I've been playing. But yeah. Deathwing Command Squad.
Yeah, so these are amazing actually, because you can take them in units of 2. And again, I think you probably run them a couple of ways. You either take 2 with Lightning Claws, so again, 70 points for the unit. You probably have to overinvest on what you commit to take them out. They could just sit on an objective in some ruins, quite easy to hide. If you want to just run something up to contest an objective that isn't very strong, with lightning claws, they'll have enough attacks to blend their way through a throwaway unit, or you make them tanky with storm shields and thunder hammers. I'm not sure I'd bother with that on a 2-model unit, but you can take a few of these, and one of them's free if you're in a if your warlord is Deathwing, and these just give you some more assets in a very elite army.
Yeah, and just a cheap thing that you can do actions with and can deep strike. If you want deploy scramblers, it's really hard to keep 2 models out of your deployment zone, even if you're an army like Guard that has a bunch of throwaway stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the sort of the Deathwing part taken care of. Ravenwing. Ravenwing Apothecary, Ravenwing Champion.
Ravenwing Ancient.
Ravenwing Ancient.
They all do exactly what everyone knows Apothecaries, Champions, and Ancients do.
Yeah, they're all pretty good.
I'm not as hot on the Ravenwing Champion as I am on the Deathwing Champion.
No, but they're fine. I think it's always worth pointing out that the Ravenwing stuff in this book is good. The Deathwing stuff in this book is really, really good.
Yeah.
Better. So when you've got a choice between two, you probably know what you're taking. And then we've got the Flyers.
We've skipped over the Black Knights, the Dark Shroud, and the Landspeeder Vengeance.
Yeah, but no one cares about them.
Covered. I think they're cool, but for their damage output, they're quite expensive. But they do have better duality in terms of they have some close combat ability that Inceptors don't. The Dark Shroud is still the -1 to hit bubble. I'm not sure he's quite as useful as he was, given that there is better and more terrain. So if you're deploying sensibly, your most of your stuff is out of line of sight anyway.
And things got more durable anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder if he's worth it. He's not expensive. I think he's 130 points, but yeah, take it or leave it. Landspeeder Vengeance is cool, in so much as it's only got 1 wound less than the new Landspeeders, but it is only 120 points, and for that you get a 2d3 super heavy plasma cannon, which is damage 3 base. If you really needed to go down on it, you could make it damage 4 with Weapons of the Dark Age. It's got a cheeky heavy bolter or assault cannon as you want it, but it's only 120 points. I think they're brilliant. And because it's not 10 wounds like the Primaris speeders, it doesn't have a degrading stat line. So I think it's fantastic.
Damage 4 is also really good if you need to take a bunch of 3-wound Terminators out, which have -1 damage.
Exactly. Although you don't have the weight of fire in terms of shots to get through the 4-up invuns with enough kind of consistency to make. I'm not sure that would be the ideal target for it, if I'm honest, but you could not.
It's a nice option to have still.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could not into Plague Marines. You could not overcharge it, put Weapons of the Dark Age, and it's still damage 3. So yeah, it's really cool.
So yeah, the Flyers. So you used to, in your sort of old Dark Angel list, you quite like both of these, didn't you? But I think you really liked the Dark Talon.
Yeah, I had 2 Dark Talons and a Nephilim Jet Fighter. The Nephilim Jet Fighter has got way better by virtue of Heavy Bolters getting better, because it's got basically a heavy 10 Heavy Bolter and then a twin Heavy Bolter. So it's got 16 Heavy Bolter shots, which with damage 2 now is brutal. And then it's got a couple of missiles as well. You could put the twin las cannon on it. I just wouldn't bother. Instead of the 10-shot Heavy Bolter, I'd take the 10-shot Heavy Bolter every time.
Yeah, without a second thought.
No, not even a thought. It's not as good shooting ground targets anymore. It used to have +1 to hit against ground. Doesn't have that anymore. But then it doesn't have the -1 for moving and firing heavy weapons, so that's a bit of a wash. But it does have +1 to hit against aircraft, which is cool. And then the Dark Talon, we saw these changes in the supplement, but their Rift Cannon's completely changed. It's a mortal wound dealing gun, which is brilliant. You can't take an armor save against it. It's just flat 3 mortal wounds for every one that goes through. So again, that gets round against stuff that reduces damage by 1. Hurricane bolters are what they are. The stasis bomb, like we talked about with stasis grenades, stops units from falling back and shooting. Also deals D3 mortal wounds. So yeah, they're probably some of the better flyers in the game. But again, because they're not competing for objectives, are you going to take them?
If I was to take one, I liked just the damage output that the Nephilim has.
It's cool for 190 points. That many heavy bolter shots, quite survivable. -1 to hit, 5 up in Vun, and then you can give it a 4 up in Vun. It's really cool.
But equally, the Dark Talon sort of spamming mortal wounds in a Death Guard meta might be a thing. I think I'd struggle to take them over more Deathwing or even more Ravenwing bikes. But they've certainly got a place, and if in a year's time, especially if the missions get changed so that there are a couple more secondaries like Engage, where you want to have maneuverable units more than objective holding units, then these look really good then. But I think that's it in part as part of the sort of the overall book's concerned. You've been having a play around with a few lists, I believe.
I have, yeah. I've kind of written one for Deathwing and one for Ravenwing. Like I say, I think the Ravenwing list is probably a bit of a hangover from how I was playing Dark Angels before, and then the Deathwing is sort of all new. And to be honest, if you've watched any online battle reports, the Deathwing one, I don't think is going to be, too sort of crazy. But there are a few subtle differences in terms of how that shapes up. So in my Deathwing list, we'll start with that because I think that's the most interesting one, really. Ravenwing, the list is not dissimilar to what we've seen before. Come on, Battle Scribe. Should have had this ready. Here we go. So yeah, you're just taking a Vanguard detachment. I'm taking Belial. I'm taking Ezekiel. I think, again, Ezekiel's great because he has the Deathwing keyword. So even though he's not a Terminator or painted white, he goes in without breaking their rules. Then in your elite slots, I have got. So I'm gonna actually give you 9 elite options, but because of how it works, I can fit them into 6 slots.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take 1 free Deathwing command squad with just 2 with lightning claws, so 70 points. I'll take the Deathwing champion as I talked about him before, buffed up to the 9s, and I'll take a Deathwing apothecary and I'll make him chief apothecary as well, giving selfless healer. So he's the hero of the chapter. The Deathwing champion is my warlord with the extra warlord trait. So those are the 3 that don't take up a force organization spot. So the 6 that do, I've got the Blade Guard Ancient, giving him chapter command, so he's chapter ancient, and I've given him Pennant of Remembrance. I haven't given him a warlord trait. I don't think you need it. Try to keep him as cheap as possible, or in terms of CP and points. Blade Guard Veteran Squad, 5-man Blade Guard Veteran Squad. I think they're cool because they're a little bit faster. They have nice synergy with the Blade Guard Ancient in terms of that extra attack. With the extra attack from him and Ezekiel, even in turn 2, they're going to be sort of tearing through sort of 2 wound units or 1 wound units. Another Deathwing command squad, so just lightning claws. So I've got 2 of those. I've then got a 10-man Deathwing Knights unit with a Watcher in the Dark. I've then got a 10-man Terminator squad, Deathwing Terminator squad. I've got 2 Cyclone missile launchers in there. I've got 5 Chain Fists, 2 with just Power Fists, 2 Thunderhammer and Storm Shields to tanks, and if they get targeted with some sort of high AP shots, which is realistically the only way you're going to be able to take them out. And then my final selection is just Owen. They have a Watcher in the Dark as well. And then finally, I've just got another Deathwing, 5-man Deathwing Terminator squad, all with Powerfist, Storm Bolters, and a Power Sword on the Sergeant with a Watcher in the Dark. And that is 2,000 points on the nose.
That is going to be bloody tough to kill your way through that.
Yeah, that is 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Yeah, 32 Terminators, 6 Primaris Blade Guards, and Ezekiel. So, yeah.
And a couple of them are almost certainly coming back from the dead as well.
Yeah, you've got some efficiencies there, especially with the big squads that are fearless. So yeah, that's my list.
Oh, that is, yeah, that is very tough to kill, unless you're Admech, and you've got the Wrath of Mars stuff. But
I'd combat squad everything then.
But yeah, that's a nightmare to kill with virtually anything else in the game.
Yeah, I think that's pretty oppressive. So that's fun. Then my Raven Wing list. Again, this isn't an Outrider, so same shtick. I've got Samael. He can be my Warlord. It depends on whether I want the CP or not. But I've got Samael. I've got a Talon Master with the always hitting on 2s relic. I've got an Ravenwing Apothecary, which doesn't take up a Force Organisation slot. Obviously, he's Chief Apothecary. Classic, selfless healer. There we go. 2 units of 5 Black Knights.
Very cool.
2 units of Outriders. A 3-man bike squad with 2 plasma guns. A Land Speeder Vengeance. A Storm Speeder Hammer Strike, which is the one with the 3-barreled multi-melter. Some decent rockets. And then 2 Dark Talons, but potentially I make one of them not a Dark Talon. I think the Dark Talons are great against something like Mortarion, or things with or things like Death Guard Terminators. So potentially this list is probably a little bit tailored towards playing Death Guard. But if I wasn't playing Death Guard, I'd probably change this up quite a bit, get some more bodies on the board rather than have those planes, because their damage output is pretty swingy.
Yeah, it's D3 shots, and if they don't have cores, if they miss a couple of times, then you feel very sad very quickly. But
yeah, with the speeder,
nice.
The speeders, I can put +1 to hit on whatever I need to shoot with them, so they're then hitting on 2s. But yeah, it's the D3 shots. So unless I'm going into a big brick of Terminators, which I'm going to be, if I use that strat and then hitting them on 2s with 3 shots, wounding on 2s, that would deal 9 mortal wounds. With no save allowed. That's pretty useful.
Yeah, delete 150 points worth of Death Shroud in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But again, that list, I've probably tailored that list a little bit. And you don't have a lot of bodies. I think it is 5, 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 models. I'm not sure it's enough. I had a Ravenwing list that was 22 models that I played against Orcs, and I just couldn't compete on the primary because there were bodies everywhere. Couldn't kill enough stuff.
Yeah, that very much sounds like a sort of 8th edition thing where you can jump onto a point very quickly.
Yeah,
But staying on a point, you'll have to sacrifice units you don't want to stay on the point, and then your
yeah. You
damage
just
drops very quickly.
Yeah, you compared to the Deathwing list, which I think was 39 models. I think this is just a little bit on the low side. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, of the two, I'd definitely rather play the Raven Wing list if it was a must-have game, as it were.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean the Raven Wing one's bad at all. I think that's important to point out. We've kind of been like, oh, the Raven Wing, they're not as good as the Deathwing. That doesn't mean they're bad.
No, I think against a lot of armies, they're still very competitive. And they're fast. And like I say, there are lots of ways to mitigate incoming damage.
So starting to look to wrap up. When you look at Dark Angels versus just the other 9th edition books that have been released, where would you rank them? Having not had the chance to play with them yet.
And that's the tricky thing, right? It's all theory hammer at the minute. I've watched a few other people play games, and like I say, I'd probably have written lists slightly differently to them, but you can see the basic mechanics of how it works, and I think they're very strong. I think against things like Blood Angels, the +1 to wound in melee, if you're running Deathwing, you've completely negated that. You've suddenly completely changed how you interact with an army like that. So that's incredibly powerful. And I think Blood Angels were probably with sanguinary guard. If they go into the unit with a -1 damage, they're only wounding on 4s. They're bouncing, and then they're getting obliterated back because they're not Primaris, so they can't transhuman, and they're just going to get pummeled by Power Fists and Maces of Redemption and what have you. So that's a fascinating matchup, I think.
Yeah, the Blood Angels do have the speed in that. If you're playing just Deathwing, and they've still got a bajillion attacks and bajillion bonus AP. But yeah,
and that will be the key with Dark Angels is can you still play the mission as well as obliterate the opponent and not really die? So their lack of speed is a bit of an issue, which is definitely why I'd take that champion with the +1 to advance and charge. It's certainly for the having that for the first couple of turns just gets you moving a little bit quicker.
I also don't think speed is necessarily a massive issue if you're this durable. So
that's the thing.
the death. Sorry.
You only really need to get to the mid board.
Yeah. If you do have a unit that can fly to the back and take the opponent's objective, great, but you don't necessarily need to do that.
No.
It's one of the reasons why Death Guard have been very powerful recently. Because they've got virtually no chance of getting to the other side of the board unless they're deep striking a Terminator squad there. And yeah, it's going to be the same thing with the Deathwing. Very similar, very comparable playstyle. That bodes them in good stead. I actually think a sort of slightly interesting point is I think the 9th edition books that have been released so far, I think Necrons look a little bit below the power level of the others. But because they've got a lot of reasonable AP single damage weapons, especially on the Necron Warriors, they've probably got quite a solid matchup against the others. And I really like the fact that there is the 9th edition books are certainly have a lot of advantages against the 8th edition books. A lot of that is just the secondaries and stuff. I like that a lot of the stratagems have been turned down in power level thus far. Things like the Weapons of the Dark Age going up to 2 CP, Veterans of the Long War being increased by a CP for Death Guard, things like that. And I'm really interested to see if the Drukhari book follow suit.
Yeah, that would
Um,
be the real test, won't it? Because I feel like to an extent, most of the ninth ed books have been like within range of each other. Yes,
yes,
some are slightly more strong than others, but we haven't got any like C or D tier armies.
yeah, it's everything seems on a very comparable power level.
Yeah,
And I there's not a case where like the Tyranids book from 8th edition came out and then was kind of dead a bit on arrival.
yeah,
It was fun for like a couple of months and then it disappeared completely. And if the 9th edition stuff keeps going the way it's going, then it's going to be exceptionally impressive.
yeah, yeah. I think so. Because I think you have to gear up for so many different types of armies that you could potentially face. You've got super quick armies that want to smash into combat. Probably the only army or two armies that are hanging on from 8th are Custodes and Sisters of Battle.
I think Sisters are doing more than hang on. But yeah, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, and the amount of new Sisters models that have been previewed. Possibly they're getting a new book. I don't think they need a new book, but I just like to see them not be able to use Miracle Dice on charges anymore. That's a personal thing, and that would be a big nerf to them.
It would be, but yeah, I think the mechanic is cool. They may look to slightly tweak it, but it's way better than the original incarnation of what Miracle Dice were and did. Which
Oh yeah, the
pretty
Sisters book is brilliant. I think it's the best 8th edition book because it's powerful, but it's never felt it's never dominated the same way as some of the Space Marine builds have.
yeah,
Yeah. And if you think of that as essentially a pre-ninth book, if you know what I mean.
it was. They knew what was coming when they put that out.
It's been they've been on the roll. GW, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Any final thoughts on Dark Angels or anything else?
No, I don't think so. It's just really nice to see them have a decent book and a book that you feel like is going to stand the test of time.
If it doesn't stand the test of time, I'm seriously worried about what's coming out.
Well, yeah, how do you up the power level from there? But I think it's brilliant. I think it makes an army that has been crap for years and years and years really interesting, and for a Space Marine army, very unique. We saw with things like Blood Angels and Space Wolves, arguably they lost a little bit of flavour. They still have some flavourful units, but things for Space Wolves, things like Wolfen getting the kicking that they got. For Dark Angels to be a Space Marine army that has a couple of play styles in it that are completely unique, I think is really, really cool. That's the thing I love about it the most.
Yeah, they're also very unique in that Space Marine thing. Amongst Space Marines as well. There's a lot of like contenders for who does the most damage of Space Marines. Probably Blood Angels, White Scars, Salamanders, all the claims depending on what units, what situation. But I don't think there's anything as durable as certainly the Deathwing, Dark Angels, even Iron Hands. I don't think come close.
No.
So they've got a really nice niche within the Space Marine chapters. But yeah, we'll call it there for this episode. Thanks for joining me.
No worries at all.
And we will see you, dear listener. Probably never at this current rate, but of lockdown. But yeah, hopefully see you in future. Bye.
Bye.